Lois.
And I'm Stacey.
And you are listening to Whose Girl Are You? Today we are going to attempt to talk about discipleship. Because that's what the scripture calls us to, right? We are all disciples.
Well, we're supposed to be.
Right. So what is disciple? Let's start with that.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about that is, have you ever heard, if you're not making disciples, then you're not a disciple?
No, I never heard that. That sounds terribly much like law to me.
Kind
That's heavy.
Kind of, but are you creating more of the same type of thing? Because a disciple is someone who disciples, right?
Okay. But what does that mean? What is a disciple?
So it's kind of like when Apostle Paul would say, follow me as I follow Christ.
Okay.
Right? Being that example, so you have to be born again first, right? You have to come to a living relationship with God, and then.
Or you can be baptized and that happens when you're a child. So there's, there's different ways of looking at this. It depends on what you think happens.
Sure. Yeah. You can look at it that way if you want. But I mean, in that context though, too, we're discipling our kids.
Absolutely.
What is the actual working definition?
Well, that's what I was asking you.
I think
it's a learner. It's a learner.
It's training.
Yeah, exactly. It's a student. It's learning. It's training. Absolutely. I think training, you're right, is the best word. Because it's not necessarily like student or discipline is training. So yeah.
Discipline is training?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Teaching.
It should be.
Yeah.
If you're disciplining and you're not training or teaching, then you're just abusing.
Yes, exactly.
So I looked it up and it says a follower or student of a teacher, leader, or philosopher.
Yeah.
Because you can be a disciple of whatever, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. People are disciples of philosophy.
Yeah.
People are disciples of bodily training, like exercise,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're a student or follower of a certain teacher or school of thought. So if we call ourselves disciples, we're talking in context of the Christian faith.
Yes, absolutely. Disciples of Christ.
Yeah.
Disciples of the apostles who followed Christ.
Yeah.
Which makes us disciples of the scriptures because we don't have the apostles standing here in front of us physically. We don't have Christ standing here in front of us physically. So that means we have the scripture, which they wrote and gave to us with their testimony.
Yes. And then, Matthew 28, I think it is.
Yes. 19.
Yeah. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age.
Yes.
So he's saying do this. Not hey, if you feel like it, and it's not like you're necessarily doing this every day, all day or something.
Well, you actually are though.
Well, yeah.
I would beg to say that it's your life.
Not if you're home alone.
I suppose. Yeah.
Devil's advocate over here.
Yeah.
If you're around people, then yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have kids or a husband or.
Yeah. Neighbors.
Well, can you disciple your husband? I don't know.
Yes, absolutely. I think you can disciple everyone. It's how you live. It's your witness. It's your testimony. It's your example. It's the King James calls it daily conversation, but it's your daily life.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of the ways you live. It's not only speaking. It's actions. It's attitudes. It's reactions to things. It's everything.
Well, it makes me think, and I should just have my Bible here, honestly, although you'd hear pages flipping instead of buttons being pushed, but because I'm just looking it up on my phone, but
yeah,
it's kind of what I do most of the time with scriptures anyway. I'm on my phone and using Bible Hub as my, cross-referencing and word definition, whatever, but Deuteronomy, do you know where I'm going in that? The Deuteronomy 6:4-9.
No, tell me.
So this is kind of it just made me think of it when you were saying it's the way you live. It's it's your life.
Yes. I know what it is. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So he says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up.
Yeah.
Tie them as symbols on your hands, bind them on your forehead, write them on your door frames of your houses and on your gates."
Yeah.
So it's like,
so maybe when you are home alone, because you have it written on your gate and your fence outside on your, signed by your mailbox.
well, actually, if you want to think about it, now that you say that, I mean, there is this, when you're alone with the Lord, reading the Bible or in prayer or just walking along the road, thinking of things that are good and holy and pure and all of those.
Yeah.
Are you letting the Lord disciple you? Are you letting him change your heart and your mind? And so like in that, you're following the teacher, right? So I guess discipleship is taking place.
Yeah. Even though you're not discipling someone else, you're being discipled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
think that's key. I think we have to realize that like we're both being discipled and discipling others.
Yes. And that's a constant process. It's never going to stop. I don't care how old or wise, quote unquote, we get.
Well, in the next life, it probably will. Or will it?
No, yeah. Well, I'm saying, yeah. No, until we die. Well, who knows? Maybe that'll be part of, I mean, we're going to have answers for questions that we don't have here, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to know everything the second we get there.
It's not going to be downloadable like the Matrix.
Yeah, probably not. I'm guessing not. But the coolest thing about that is with endless time, right? You can sit down and talk to Abraham about what it was like for real instead of just downloading his data. Yeah,
we have plenty of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, not like our, 2-hour a week time constraint for podcasting.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the reason I was thinking about this is because I went to a conference. I live in New England. Most of the churches here are around 100 people, and there's a lot of the little churches.
Mm-hmm.
So this group of guys set up this thing called Small Town Summits, and they do one day conference in each of the New England states throughout the year. Because for anyone that's not been to the East Coast, you can drive from Maine down to Rhode Island, Connecticut. Like doesn't take that long. Like our states are really tiny here.
Yeah.
People that have only grown up like on the West Coast or in the Midwest and they've never been out East
I know.
Don't understand like how close our states are.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all pretty tiny.
Yeah.
So what they're trying to do is unify that. And then it's kind of to encourage pastors and cause it's sometimes hard for them, these little churches that it's not like the Bible Belt where you're seeing these churches growing and growing and growing. You're tending to a flock that's not probably going to get over 100 people.
Yeah.
Because it's just serving that one little local community. And there's a lot of small little towns dotted throughout New England. So, I mean, there are some big churches here. Mine is kind of a mid-sized, large church for the area.
Yeah.
But most of them are small. So anyway, we're at this and they happen to have a breakout session that was the one woman that was doing the breakout session talking about women mentoring women.
Mm-hmm.
Which I appreciated that there was actually a few pastors there, some male pastors that were sitting in on it too, because they wanted to hear what was going to be said in that too, because they have a desire to have that happening in their churches.
Right.
So, she brought up the Matthew 28. It's not like I'm so smart and I have all these on the tip of my tongue. Like I listened to this lady speak and I took some notes and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there was a few things that she said that I thought were really interesting. And it also gave me time to reflect back on people that have mentored me in the past and people that I have mentored. And it's not always on a scheduled mentorship program. It's more of a organic type of thing.
Yeah.
And she was talking about, both because she was part of Crew. I don't know if you've ever heard of Crew. They're on college campuses and it's a mentorship program for, So she actually had been mentored in a professional mentoring setting through Crew, but then also organically, she's a little bit older than me, the lady that was speaking. And so I wanted to hear from you before I share my stuff. Have you had people in your life that have mentored you?
Yes.
Do you want to share about any of them? You have people obviously come to mind super fast.
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I want to use names.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Because
you can just...
I know I'm going to forget some. Right?
Yeah.
But yes, I have had people, so mentoring in different areas, how to be a wife, that started really young. How to be a mother. Even before that, I mean, I got married when I was 17, so I was still wet behind the ears, but even before that, though, there were women who mentored me in music, who mentored me in just growing up as a Christian woman, Christian girl. I was a girl.
Like, in what ways did they mentor you?
I babysat for this couple, I babysat for their children, and she just took me under her wing.
Mm-hmm.
She taught me music. She played the organ, and I loved music. I had a thirst for music. I just was drawn to it. And she taught me notes and what the notes meant so I could figure out and let me practice at her house, which is torture because every other note is wrong and you have to go back and figure it out. It's painful listening to somebody play an instrument when they don't know how to play an instrument. And she was just dear.
So she opened up her house to you, shared the knowledge with you that she had, that she saw that you had some potential in you or interest. Yeah. And just was kind of like, follow me as I show you how to do it. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, so that's one of them. I had another older woman who taught me how to be a wife. Like just by example.
Well, how did she do that?
By hanging out.
So did she have you to her house a lot, or did she come to your house?
We spent time with them.
Okay.
As a couple, a young couple. And we spent time with them. And it was nothing like, here, I'm going to train you how to be a wife. It was just...
You watched her example.
Yes, exactly. And then motherhood, same thing. That same person, and then another person, another woman, another young mother, older than me, maybe 10 years, and was always available. She was always available for me to say, my baby has this weird rash, or is this a symptom of teething? Or how should I take care of whatever bodily need of my child?
Yeah. Some people have a mother that does that, and I think it's pretty normal to have a mother that discipled you, that mentored you, that trained you up. But not everybody has a good role model as a mother.
Yes.
And sometimes you move away from your mother, which I know you did.
I did.
Right? When you got married and you were very young. And
you know what else? We didn't have a phone at home. And we certainly didn't have cell phones because it was before those days. So I didn't call my mom or my older sister. I couldn't. I did occasionally, but it was from somewhere else. It wasn't like call from home and chat, Plus it was in the old days of long distance costing, $12 a minute.
Mm-hmm. So there was some benefits to all of that, because then it forces you to have other people in your life around you. Yeah. You don't just lean on the same people over and over and over, right? Yeah. So you get a variety of ways of doing things, because there's not just one right way. Anyone that's like, there's just one right way to do something, like no. Typically they're wrong. I mean, right. There's probably a few things that there's only one right way, but right. When it comes to parenting and being a wife and all of that, there's so many variations to that.
And then I had spiritual mentors.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So those women older than me have come alongside and been available to discuss scriptural ideas, thoughts. By their example and by their life, they show what it's like to be a godly woman in whatever role that is. Some of them are married, so that would be godly wife. Some of them are mothers, so that would be godly mother. Some of them are single, so that would be godly Christian woman. But they're living their life in a way that reflects that Christ is within them. The Holy Spirit is within them.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of it is inviting people into your life.
Mm-hmm.
Follow me as I follow Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're not doing it perfectly and we're going to fail and we're going to,
Absolutely.
But then we still show when you screw up, this is what you do. This is the godly way to take care of it, right? To ask for forgiveness, to be humble, to,
yes.
or to extend forgiveness.
Yes.
How to be submissive, which is such a trigger word for people these days. But it's necessary and it's a hard thing to learn.
Yes.
Like, what is it? What isn't it? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So discipleship is kind of the umbrella term. There's so many ways to disciple people.
Mm-hmm.
You can study scripture together and teach someone how to study their Bible appropriately in context.
Mm-hmm.
You could disciple them by meeting with them on a regular basis and praying with them and teaching them how to pray and how to develop a rhythm of prayer in their life. You can disciple people in how to eat healthy and treat their bodies well with physical exercise and healthy diets.
Mm-hmm.
You could disciple them in task-oriented stuff, how-tos, right? How to garden, how to how to parent, how to discipline, that kind of thing for kids. So mentoring, mentoring is one form of discipleship. So like a woman-to-woman mentor. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the big thing that we were talking about yesterday. And the most specific example in the scripture about it is from Titus chapter 2, verses 3-5 talks about, maybe you can pull it. Do you have something to pull it up?
Yes.
If you want to read Titus 2, 3-5, it kind of gives us this is what it tells us to do. And this is what spawned the whole conversation and breakout session about it. And we know a lot of this is happening organically, and it has for me as well, happened organically. But I've also had, because it's been so impactful in my life, the people that have come up alongside me and mentored me in a variety of ways with parenting and being a wife and walking the Christian life and that kind of thing. One time I was speaking at a women's retreat and I was talking about this very thing and about how, we're pretty disconnected now, even though we're connected maybe online. It's a lot different than being face to face with someone and doing life with them. And I was encouraging the people I was speaking to look around and find younger people. It doesn't necessarily have to be younger in age. It could be younger in how far they are into their faith, right? Yeah. Like if you've been a Christian a lot longer than them, even if they're older than you, that doesn't matter. So there's a variety of ways. I don't want to pigeonhole it into like they have to be younger by age, right?
Exactly.
But I would say like look around for someone younger that you see might need some help and just, start trying to do life with them. And also always be looking toward those wise women in the church that you see diligently serving and see if they have any space in their life to let you in a little bit so you can glean from them as well. So always kind of be reaching one hand up.
Yeah.
To someone that's a little bit ahead of you and reaching down to someone that's knows a little bit less than you,
Yeah.
And in that, after I got done speaking, someone came up to me and said, I want you to mentor me. Would you mentor me? And I said, yeah. And as I walked away, because I was busy, because I was also like leading kind of that committee for that retreat. So I was neck deep and I said, I'll connect with you next week or something. And then I gave her a hug and I walked away. And as I walked away, I thought to myself, I don't know what it means to mentor somebody, like in an official capacity.
Yeah. I don't know how to do this.
So anyway, what does Titus say? Do you have that?
Titus says, chapter 2, verses 3-5 say, older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine. They are to teach what is good, and so train the young women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled, pure, working at home, kind, and submissive to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be reviled. And it's in the middle of this instruction for older men, then older women, then younger men, then it lists slaves, it lists, it's a whole list of instruction.
Right. Yeah. But in that, the part that I was looking at was the specific women, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying, what I was clarifying for anyone who doesn't know.
Yeah.
Anyone that doesn't know, it's not like Paul just was writing to Titus and decided suddenly to write about older women. No, he's in a list of, he's instructing, and older women is one of them. And that's why I started the other podcast. That's why I started podcasting, literally.
Really?
Were those verses, Titus 2:3-5. That's it.
That's so interesting.
Those are my verses, and that's what I started with. Like, we have to be doing this. And one way to do this is to podcast, because people listen as they're cleaning house, as they're driving to work, as they're like, whatever they're doing, they listen to podcasts.
Yeah, it's true. I do too. I mean, when I go for walks, whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of funny because the scripture that's being preached this upcoming Sunday is Titus chapter 2, the first half of it. And so my pastor who's preaching, we were already talking about this Titus because this Titus 2:3-5 at work as we were going about our business, me and the younger girl that worked there, because she's from a different generation and she's much younger and she's still single and all of that. And so we were kind of talking through how it can be, even this verse can be a little bit triggering, like to work at home, to, you know, it's like
love their husbands, love their children. What about the one who's not a husband? I mean, who's not married, who has no husband or children.
So anyway, we were talking through it and the pastor pops his head in and he says, wow, like I've been listening to you girls talk and you're really it's actually helping me to write my sermon. Cause he's like, how do you as a man, speak to this part of it without like feeling like you're being patriarchal or whatever?
Yep.
And then I was like, I'll go to the breakout session and get some more stuff for your sermon, which was a total joke because I won't even see him before Sunday morning. He'll already have his sermon written, but yeah, I'm excited now that I've dug into it a little bit more. I'm even more excited to go to church on Sunday to hear like how he handles this topic or whatever. But one of the interesting things that this lady said that I thought was really good is if you're not like in crew in college or something in some kind of official capacity mentoring thing and it's more organic, maybe you're even in a smaller church and there definitely like isn't enough people to draw from to have some official program going on, that it takes some bravery and some vulnerability, of course, to try to insert yourself into the life of someone that's a different generation than you, right? Whether you're young and looking for someone to mentor you or whether you're older and looking to mentor somebody else. But I would say pray about it because I feel like everyone should have someone in their life. And a lot of people listening probably have kids at home and by all means, you're doing this already, right? Because you're mentoring these young ones and I understand how busy that is. But if your kids, let's say, are 4 and 5, right? And then you see someone that has just had their first kid and you remember how hard it was and maybe you invite them over and just really casual.
Or say, can I drop by?
Or can I drop by?
They might be in the middle of like, I can't even go anywhere because you know how many things I have to take with me when I go somewhere? Like the diaper bag and all the stuff that belongs in it and the car seat and I don't even want to go anywhere.
Yeah. And it just really depends on the person, right?
Yes,
so
totally.
like if you just ask, like I'd really like to hang out with you.
Connect.
Yeah. Like, would you be interested in that? I could come to your house or you could come to mine or we could meet at a neutral park or something like that. Like, is that something you'd be interested in? And, they might reject you and say, no, I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
And then you just move along. But typically, I think you're going to find that people are so glad because people are so disconnected and they want, especially when they've had their first kid. And so my whole point with that is like, even if you feel like you don't know it all because your kids are only 2 and 3 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Well, you know more than the person who just had a baby 6 months ago. You know, so like there's always someone that knows less than you.
Yes. And it goes the other way too. There's always someone that knows more than you.
Sure.
So connect with them as well. But you know what? That one, it seems like comes a little more naturally because you need help. When you first have babies, you're like, I'm going to ask that older lady at church who has older kids, like, can you help me with this? Like my kid has, they're drooling and they're crying and they're like, whatever. Well, yeah, they're probably teething, you can ask them, like, is this teething? Or, what are these spots? Somebody said, chicken pox, whatever. Not in these days, but you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, people are still having chicken pox.
Not as much as they used to.
Well, no, because most are vaccinating against it.
Yeah.
But none of my kids have had it, and none of my kids have been vaccinated.
Yeah.
My kids are getting pretty old.
I know. So have you talked about, this is like a complete different subject, but have you talked about vaccinating them against it now that they're old enough or getting to the older end of?
I think my daughter she may have decided to do it.
Yeah.
I think she might have done it.
Yeah.
And that's just the thing. Like,
I know, because there's some point where chickenpox you can have complications if you're older. It's supposed to be a childhood disease.
Yeah.
It's not as easy to have chickenpox when you're older, and you end up with side effects and shingles and like whatever, different things. So, yeah, I ended up having my youngest one vaccinated against it because I don't know people don't have them anymore. By the time he got to a certain age, like starting school age, I was like, he hasn't had them yet. He's getting a shot. That's it.
I got chicken pox at 17. My sister was 18.
Yeah.
That's when we got him.
Yeah. I was probably something like 12.
Yeah. Totally different subject, but
yeah. Well, what I was trying to say in that is often it's easier to reach out to that person that's older than you when you need help, I think, than it is to look at the younger people or the people less far along in the journey, whatever journey that is, whether it's music, whether it's motherhood, whether it's wifehood, whether it's on the job, whether it's in school, to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm here if you ever need help. Can I help you? Can we hang out?
Why do you think that's harder?
Because it implies that you know more and you're smarter and you're more experienced, which you are more experienced, but it implies some kind of superiority. Like, I have some wisdom to impart here.
Well, I mean, you don't have to go up to them and be like, can I mentor you? You look like a disaster.
No, that's not a good plan.
You could just simply invite them to your house for lunch or something, like, hey, I've seen you around. I'd like to get to know you. Would you want to come over for lunch? That kind of thing.
Exactly. But it feels like in the other direction, it's often a more direct plea for help in the moment. Like asking a question about being a wife or being a mother or being something at work. It's a more direct, like, I need help with this. I have a question and I hope you have the answer for it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can see that for sure. But is that mentoring? Like just answering questions that you might know? Like, I'm talking about, is it still easy for the young person to ask the old person to like be part of their life or do something with them outside of church?
I think it leads to that though.
You think it can?
I think it can lead to that. That can be an opening to
conversation, at least.
Yes, and start that relationship.
Okay. So you're saying like
as a way to begin that relationship.
Okay.
It's easier to reach out to someone that I need help from than for me to look around and say, I can mentor this person or this person because I'm in the same road, but I'm further along than they are.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I mean, hopefully the person that's like saying, I want to take someone under my wing is not having some kind of like arrogant, I know so much or whatever.
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's that they don't realize that they have
need
something to offer.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about the older one.
Yeah, the older person. Like rather than I have wisdom to impart, it's like I have nothing to impart. Well, you do. If you're further along the journey than someone else in whatever it is, you do have things to impart. Like I fell in a pothole when I was a young wife. Maybe you should think about that and stay away from it.
Yeah.
Or I really messed up with my kids doing this. It was hard. It was hard for me. It was better to do it this way.
So, like, some of my experiences with, and I don't know, I've had like some of the youth just like magnetized toward me in some way. I don't know if just cause I'm such a child myself half the time, the way that
you're fun. That's why.
If there's a game going on, like, I'm all about it. Like, I'll bring the game, I carry games in my purse for Pete's sake. Like, I don't, so I've had younger ones just kind of striking up conversation, whatever. And I'll be like, hey, you want to go out for coffee sometime? And they're all about it, So like, let's meet wherever for coffee. And it's more of a, tell me what's going on, what's going on? Like, what are you trying to figure out? What are your successes right now? What are you excited about? Like, what's hard? What's hard for you? Just where are you at? Like, I care and let me just speak into it. And I'm not going to speak all of my advice. You don't have to. Here's the beauty of mentorship. You do not need to have all the answers, and it is totally okay to say, I don't know about that. That's a tough one, and just, can I pray with you? Right. So we don't need the answers. We know the one that has the answers. We know the one that can heal the wounds. And so the one thing we teach them is to go to God with those problems, go to the scriptures for answers. Yeah. This is where you look toward this for truth. That's the kind of stuff that we're trying to show, that when we have tough times, like, we're not like, you're going through this, oh, I know exactly what you should do. It's kind of like, I've been through some tough stuff too, and I'm not necessarily going to share with you what it is. But when I was in that tough time, I tried all these other things and they led me down broken roads. And then I finally stopped doing it my own way and started to do it following Christ and laying down my stuff, kind of showing them. Sometimes this is like leading someone into faith even, right? So we can't assume that everyone in the church is following Christ. They might want to, they might like think they should, they might see, they just might not be there yet. And they might not, this is the kind of coming alongside them as they walk along the road and saying like, yeah, no, being young's hard. And let's talk about it. And then just point them to God, point them to God, point them to God, point them to God. Like, you're just that's all you're just a signpost, right? You're just a conduit, like, of all of the Holy Spirit in you just pours out onto them and points them right to the cross, right to the foot of the cross. And it's just like, get on your knees, let me pray for you. So that's kind of the mentorship that I've experienced with the younger ones. And it's always super cash. You want to go out for coffee, or do you want to, maybe meet early before youth group or something and sit and have a chat.
Yeah. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. And so I have an easy time with that age group. So when I say youth, I don't mean elementary, middle even. I mean high school and college, right?
Like youth group. Yeah.
Yeah. High school, college, young adult even. Yeah. Those are kind of the people that's like my people group. If I had to say there was a people group for me.
Right.
But I have also had experiences with having people mentor me, not in an official capacity, but just, just to keep it real simple, they basically taught me what it looks like to live the Christian life. How do you speak to people? How do you conduct yourself? and you're just watching. Yeah. You're just watching and learning, right? They're not necessarily telling me anything or correcting me or what. If I ask for help, like, hey, one of them, I said, I'm turning 30. I don't know how to sew. Will you teach me? And she said, yeah, I can't believe you don't know how to sew. And then she taught me. And, so there's practical things like that as well.
Yeah.
But one of the things is if someone's going to come into an official mentoring situation, one of the things I love that this lady had said yesterday was, when they say, like, if someone happened to say, which I know, like, how often is it going to happen to somebody? Someone's going to walk up to you and say, will you mentor me? It's probably not going to be super common. But if it does happen, say, refine your ask. And I loved that because, like, when that girl had asked me, will you mentor me? And I walked away a little bit scared, to be honest, because I said, what does that even mean? What did I get myself into? Had I said refine your ask, she might have said, like, I just really need mentorship in marriage stuff or kid stuff or just in basic Bible knowledge or like refine your ask. Like what exactly is it that you specifically right now in your life feel like you need help with? And then you're going to meet on a regular basis, maybe whatever works for you and the other person, you're going to meet on a regular basis once a week or once every other week or whatever it is, or maybe over the phone to talk about that specific thing and see how that's going, kind of be a little bit of an accountability for them.
Right.
You know, whatever. And when I'll tell you this, if you're mentoring somebody else, you grow.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's not like just they're growing. It's not like you're watering them and they're growing. You're also growing. I'm not sure how that happens, but it just does.
Yep. You're being watered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Partly because I think if you're digging into the word to find, not necessarily on a specific topic, but if you're studying together and you're praying together, you're going to grow. You can't help but grow with that exposure to that.
Yeah. And that honestly, you know, if someone's like, I don't know, that's where you start. You say,
totally.
Okay, well, I'm willing to, you know, pick a shorter book, right? In the New Testament, some of those short ones, and just say, you know what, we're going to get together every week. We're going to read through one chapter of this. We're going to talk about that chapter. We're going to pray together. And like, that's, you know, share a cup of coffee. It doesn't have to be a huge time commitment, but it was interesting. She said, and I think this is true, that this current generation, you know, the high school, college age, young adult kind of generation right now. What are they? Does their generation have a name? Like I'm Gen X.
I don't know. Gen Z.
Then there's millennials. Then I don't know. I don't know what they are. I don't know if they have a thing yet, but maybe they haven't defined themselves yet. They're probably called the woke generation. Something like that.
Centennials were 95 to 2010. What are they after that?
But anyway, this lady was saying that she thinks some of the things that this generation values is vulnerability, authenticity, individuality. She said some others, but I can't think of them right now. So they value all of this. They even are more like civic minded.
Yeah.
And she said, so the biggest challenge is most of the time these people are looking toward people in our age group to be mentors. But what did our generation value? Strength, independence, hardworking, commitment, you know, and it doesn't necessarily always jive with that younger generation. So like when you're coming into mentoring someone younger, keep in mind that these things they hold to a high value, and you're not going to get them to hold the same things that people born in the 70s, 60s and 70s, like what their value system is not the same as what it is today. And it just, one is not necessarily even better than the other. It's just each generation values different things for different reasons because of the type of world that they grew up in.
Right. Exactly.
And just to be mindful about that, not trying to conform them into that, but how can we come up alongside them with the stuff culture is throwing at them and still point them to Christ.
Right.
Which is, it's getting harder, it feels like.
Yeah. So there's something to that duty, and it was even greater in the generations before us, the responsibility and the duty and the whatever. I've actually done some research on that, and the definition of duty has changed throughout the years. In George Washington's day, your duty was like a legally binding obligation that you were contractually held to. In the 1900s, early 1900s, it had changed to be, this is your responsibility. It is your duty to do something. And today it's been changed to, this is something you ought to do. So it's like lightened and lightened.
More and more optional.
Yes.
Like your civic duty is to go and vote.
Yes, exactly.
And they do not think that anymore. You know what though? My generation, it started waning with my generation because I remember when MTV came out with their whole propaganda on Rock the Vote.
Yeah.
Remember Rock the Vote?
Yes. But what I'm saying is it didn't start with your generation. It started in George Washington's day.
No, I'm saying it started like really dropping off like people's
Yeah, it's been dropping off. That's what I'm saying is, I don't
Yeah.
know that we all tend to think like, oh, the world's going to, it's falling to pieces right here on my watch. But it's been falling to pieces, like before us and before our parents and before our grandparents. It's a continual thing.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that at all. I'm just saying, like, I see a huge disparity between me and my grandparents.
Yes.
Who are now, they're
Exactly.
gone already. But, like,
Yeah.
what they considered, like, our civil duties and different things, like,
Mhm.
I did not hold to those same standards as them.
Right. Exactly.
At all. And so I just saw, like, a huge difference.
So, you know the term, the greatest generation?
Yeah.
You know who that is?
No. Actually, I can't. If I was doing a quiz and I had a multiple choice, I might be able to guess it, but I can't. I've heard of it, though.
Yeah. I think it is considered those who died or lived, and died in, Americans born between 1900 and 1925. Many of them fought in World War II. So World War II era were considered the greatest generation. They lived through the Depression. They lived through World War II, and they raised baby boomers. Their children were the baby boomers, right?
Yeah.
So it's the generation before that.
Yeah, it's my grandparents.
Yeah. But you know what? There's something they did with duty. And I'm going to tie this into discipleship after I tell you what they did with duty. They followed duty and obligation over their own desires, over the selfish desires of their own needs or wants.
Mm-hmm.
They sacrificed themselves for the greater good. I mean, nobody had the choice to live through the World War that they lived through or the Great Depression that they lived through, but they were giving themselves for others, for the greater good. And you know what? There was something worse than dying to them. And this is impactful to me. What is worse than dying?
Becoming a slave.
That's a good one. But to them, it was dereliction of duty. You would rather die than not do your duty. And now I'm going to tie this into discipleship. Have you ever heard of the Bonhoeffer book, The Cost of Discipleship?
I have not read it, but I have heard of it. And
okay, it's good. I highly recommend. 5 stars. Go get it. Read it.
All right.
It's good. We should read it and do a podcast on it. I haven't read it for many years, but it's a good book. So I want to read you a quote from his book. And I want to explain that this quote, I talked about that greatest generation because of this quote. Because I don't want it to sound like duty, obligation, hard, no joy, like worse than dying is dereliction of duty. But he says in The Cost of Discipleship, I'm going to read you a few sentences.
Mm-hmm.
And if we answer the call to discipleship, where will it lead us? What decisions and partings will it demand? To answer this question, we shall have to go to him, for only he knows the answer. Only Jesus Christ, who bids us follow him, knows the journey's end. But we do know that it will be a road of boundless mercy. Discipleship means joy. So it's not worse than dying. It's not hard. It's not duty only, like obligation. It is joy and it is mercy.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah, both to mentor and to be mentored. Both.
Yeah. I think to that, I would say, even as you're talking about the whole duty and whatever, when it is something of noble cause,
mm-hmm.
or even an honoring of a commitment,
mm-hmm.
when you do, it might not be in that moment that it's joy. It might not be
exactly.
in that moment that it's that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's the following through of the thing that you said you do and being that person of integrity that follows Christ. Because I think that's one of the, like, someone that follows Christ, like, does have integrity. Jesus would never say, you know, I will do this, and then he just, like, doesn't do it.
Right.
Or I'll, like, be there, and then he's just not there. Like, would he? You know, I don't think so.
No.
So you know, he even said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Like, count the cost before you build the house. Like, don't, like, be, you know what I mean? So, so, like, in the moment, it can be a hard thing. And I think this is one of the things that I've seen that's frustrating to me, is to try to explain. And I think that Bonhoeffer quote explains it so well, is that it's so hard to explain to the millennial who they like to leave all of their options open until the last possible moment so that they can pick the best one for that moment. And it's not the best one for the greater good of whoever. It's like, what's going to make me feel good in the moment. And I'm talking in generalizations. Obviously, not all people are like this. Yes. I'm just saying, like, in the younger generations from me, this is something that I see a lot. And instead of, like, deciding that the thing that you're asked to do is worthy of doing and saying yes, and then no matter what comes up, no matter what fun thing comes up, you say, I have this prior commitment and I'm going to go to that. Like, even saying I'm going to go to things, graduation parties, I have 3 of them to go to in the next week or whatever.
Yeah.
And everything in me does not want to go. But the thing is when I do go and I do just do the thing that I say I'm going to do, I'm always glad I did.
Yes. There's blessing.
It's such a blessing to that person. And in case it's a blessing back to me. And it's this whole theory of, like Christ says, no greater joy besets a man than one that lays down their life for their own friend or whatever.
Yep.
And so it's kind of this, think of others before yourself. It's so countercultural to think of others before yourself, but it's like, in doing that comes joy. In doing that comes tender mercies. In doing that comes this peace that surpasses all understanding.
Yes.
So it's the seeking of doing what God would have you to do and be the kind of person that God would have you be, that in and of itself, it you know, is what brings the joy and the peace and the mercy and all of these things. And it's not, I think we have this misconception sometimes that it's these great things we do.
Yes, exactly.
And it's like, no, it's doing these little tiny hard things over and over and over in the same direction over a period of time. That's what people don't want to do. That's what Christ is calling us to do.
Exactly. I'm going to give you an example of that. You know, the scripture says that I am to submit to my husband. In fact, in that Titus 2 thing that I read, didn't it say submissive to their own husbands? That is not a popular phrase today. I mean, you'd say you need to submit to your husband and they're like, people are like, oh, their back is up, man.
Well, some people that has been twisted and used against people and used in an inappropriate context.
Yes.
So
it does not mean I must be a doormat.
If someone's hairs raise up and they get all defensive, you have to right away define what you're talking about.
Yes.
Because they have a wrong definition or a bad experience.
Yes.
That needs to be unraveled.
Right. But in the submitting to my husband dynamic, I am submitting to my husband because God calls me to do it, not because my husband calls me to do it.
Absolutely.
You know, he's not standing there with his thumb over me saying, you must submit to me. No, when I read Titus, when I read the scripture, it says, I am supposed to submit to my husband. And you know what? Because it is God's command, I can do that.
Exactly. The same reason I can respect my husband, not because he deserves it all the time. He does deserve it most of the time, but he doesn't deserve it all the time. And the times he doesn't, I don't feel like he deserves it. I do it anyway because God calls me to it.
Absolutely.
I'm doing it for God. I'm respecting my husband because God said, not respecting my husband because my husband said.
Yep, exactly.
So it's like, you got to follow God and he'll lead you into those paths of righteousness for his name's sake.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's not popular.
No.
Submission to anything is not popular.
Yeah.
Extreme independence and individuality is king right now.
Yeah, exactly.
So here was an interesting idea from that conference. talking about how is it that you could maybe, without starting a mentorship program, how could you develop this kind of organic mentoring within your church? And if your church has home groups, small groups, life groups, whatever you call them, that meet during the week at some point, like in people's houses, which a lot of churches have nowadays.
Right.
Change them up. So the way to do it is you have to start with the people that are hosting them in their houses or leading them or whatever, and encourage them to be asking and inviting people of all sorts of demographics to their group.
Okay.
So what tends to happen, and it's not bad necessarily, it's just pretty normal for just human nature to look around and like attracts like. Yeah. And if you're, you don't have any little kids anymore, all your kids are teenagers, you're attracted to those kind of people because, well, for one, they all have the same freedoms you have, you know? So you don't always want to hang out with all the people that have a lot of kids and you already had a long week at work, right? It's like,
right.
For lack of better words, I've already put in my time.
Yeah.
But here's what her idea was. And this is something that they had implemented. And I thought this is actually sort of genius. So typical month has 4 weeks. So people usually meet once a week in life groups. She said the first week they do men only. So the wives are home with the kids. The second week they do women only. Now the husbands are home with the kids. The third week they do just couples. So the couples need to get childcare. Go out together to this life group. And the last week of the month, they do everybody. Bring your kids, whatever. And we're not actually doing a study that time. We're just doing fellowship and sharing a meal. So you're still around people that are maybe 80 and 60 and 40 and 20 and 18 and little kids and maybe some teenagers and getting them all together like that, which in homeschool families doesn't seem revolutionary.
Right.
Because homeschool families have developed this philosophy a long time ago about
multi-generation. Yeah.
Not always being with your own age group. But not everybody has experienced that. And so even if you're the empty nester who's retired and you have a small group at your house, to invite a couple families that have little kids, and you can be very specific about it. Like, I think we shy away from sometimes inviting, like being like, well, that couple's really great, but they have 8 kids and none of them are old enough to babysit. Like, I don't know if I want to get into that. And it's like, I love their kids and I love them or whatever, but that's just a big ask.
Yeah.
Like, my house is small. And if I invite them, I want to invite at least one other younger couple. Well, now I have a dozen kids. What am I going to do with that? In the winter in New Hampshire, like they can't just go outside and play.
Yeah.
So I think this would actually remedy that problem. And then you're asking them to maybe get childcare one day out of the month so that they can come as a couple, which I don't think is a huge ask.
Right. And if for some reason they can't get childcare that one time, they can come the other 3.
Exactly.
And try again next month for childcare,
Yeah. And so I thought it was a brilliant idea. I'm like really excited for fall to start up because I'm already been mentally building my group in my head and like who I want to ask and what's going to happen with that. Cause I just really want to see if it would organically take shape, that the older ones could learn from the younger ones and the younger ones could learn from the older ones, and you could do life together. And by sharing a meal, that's another. Sharing meals creates bonds.
Well, I was going to say Life Together. That's another book. That's another Bonhoeffer book.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this is...
Well, I'm going to have a whole library of Bonhoeffer books to read by the time this conversation's over today.
Right.
So yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything else. She just said, it's really about like looking around and including others in what you're doing. Yeah. Like just be inclusive, which this generation loves that word too. So like inclusivity is like king. So like you're going to something, invite someone else. See this, I understand does not come natural to some people. To me, comes supernatural to invite people that I barely know. And I especially love having different friend groups and then introducing those friend groups to those friend groups and like watching them become friends as well.
Yeah.
And I don't even have to hang out with them. You know, sometimes they go do their own thing too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
It grows into that.
Yeah. It's just, it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Because people, I mean, I think we've been talking about this for years already, but people are feeling more and more disconnected, like not having people to do life with.
I wonder why that is.
Well, I think one thing is smaller families.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Another thing is people have gotten a lot more migratory where they're like moving.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of movement. I have friends that live all over the place.
Yeah.
So they're starting from scratch. And so it's not always easy.
Yeah. And then the social media, internet, gaming, like all of that, you can
have a sense of community. Yeah. But not really living life together.
It's, yeah. It's different than life together though.
Yeah. It's a shallow substitution.
Mm-hmm.
It does give something, you know?
Yeah.
Depending if you're actually talking to people while you're gaming and stuff, which a lot of them do now. They're all wearing headsets and they're having full conversations while they're grinding out some part of their game where they're having to just mine for hours or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, it can be good, but. So yeah, I don't know. I would just challenge people it doesn't have to be official capacity, but.
Right.
You know, look up to those who are ahead of you and look back at those who are behind you. And it's not like better or worse type of thing. It's just, you know more than someone and you know less than someone.
Yeah, exactly.
And so be in community, and it's a blessing for both parties involved, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. I want to read you another Bonhoeffer quote. Okay.
Yeah.
From that same, I think it's from that same book. Yeah, it's another. He talks about costly grace and cheap grace.
Boy, I feel like I've read this book.
Maybe you have and you just forgot.
Okay, explain it.
This is his section about costly grace. And he says, such grace is costly because it calls us to follow. And it is grace because it calls us to follow Jesus Christ. It is costly because it costs a man his life. And it is grace because it gives a man the only true life. It is costly because it condemns sin, and grace because it justifies the sinner. Above all, it is costly because it cost God the life of his Son. Ye were bought at a price. And what has cost God much cannot be cheap for us. Above all, it is grace, because God did not reckon his Son too dear a price to pay for our life, but delivered him up for us. Costly grace is the incarnation of God.
Wow.
And to me, you know the saying, when Christ calls a man, when he bids a man to follow him, he bids him come and die.
Yeah.
That's the service, the mentorship, the discipleship, in laying down our life for someone else, in giving, even though we might wonder about the dynamics, like how's that going to work to have 12 kids in my house? Or how's that going to work? How am I going to feed all these people? What am I going to feed all these people?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe let's make it potluck so I don't have to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is my house too clean or too dirty or too stuffy or not stuffy enough or too fancy or not fancy enough? Like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Reach out to people and connect with them and love them where they are and let them love you where you are. I used to be a lot more stressful about my house when I was younger. And I don't know if it's with age. I don't know if it's with wisdom. I don't know if it's with laziness. I don't really know. I don't really know why, but I don't care anymore. I'm like, you know what? Come over.
Yeah, I would never tell someone not to come over because of the state of my house. Typically, I'm pretty good about keeping it pretty good because I just work on it daily.
Well, yeah.
I'm in a rhythm that it's not that bad, but I'm not.
But it's decent. It's not like.
Yeah. It used to keep me from, like, I would go into this spaz attack and yelling at kids to hurry up and do this, that, and the other thing, and like that whirlwind where you get your whole house clean in 30 minutes because someone's coming over. I'm beyond that too.
Yeah.
I'm past that point. Now I'm just like, I kind of look around and make sure there's no dirty underwear on the floor or something just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'll go check. You know, the one thing I check when someone says they're coming over, I go check the guest toilet.
I do too.
That's the only thing I check.
Is there splatters all over it?
Yeah. I'm like, sometimes I'll wipe that toilet and sink down. Yeah, I have boys. I live in a house full of men. So, and I make sure there's toilet paper and I make sure there's a clean hand towel. And like, besides that, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's all I do.
Exactly. Same.
And honestly, even with that, the last time I was having people over, one of my friends showed up early. I think we were having small group because the small group leaders were out of town or something. So I was like, oh, I'll host. And she came over early anyway to have coffee. And I was like quickly just trying to do the dishes because I had a sink full of dishes. And I said, hey, can you check that toilet in there for me?
Yeah.
And next thing I knew, so I've gone a whole nother step. Now I'm like having the first person that shows up clean the toilet. So I don't know if you want to be the first person to show up at my house because you might be helping me get it ready. But
oh, that's funny.
But yeah, no, it's funny you change so much. Well, you know what I think you start to realize as you get older and people have invited you into their houses and whatnot, that when you go into the houses that aren't perfect, you feel right at home. Like and when you're growing up, you know, everybody knows their house wasn't always perfect. It was home, you know, and you just want to be invited into the space. You don't care about the space being perfect. And as a matter of fact, when it is too perfect, it's proven that people feel more uncomfortable.
Exactly. That's what I meant when I said too stuffy. Like, do I dare even sit on this couch?
Here's a great
Looks
thing.
like nobody's ever sat on it before.
My house used to be such like this, like perfect, that one of my husband's cousins had come over. And I mean, he was pretty crude. God bless his heart. He's passed away now, but, he came over to my house and he was just like, wow, nice house. And he sat down and he was just like, I'm afraid to sit on the couch. I might fart or whatever. And I was like, he's like, it's so clean. You can't even fart on the couch. I was like, oh my gosh. But the whole point of it is he felt uncomfortable because it was so perfect. Yeah. So I think imperfect people are fine with imperfect houses. And guess what? We're all imperfect.
Exactly.
I'll tell you a secret. But, you know, I think the problem is sometimes if you're looking at too much Instagram and stuff, you start to believe the lie.
The lie of the filter.
Oh gosh. You know, if anyone thinks they're fooling us with those filters, it's like, girl, I just saw you at the grocery store. You do not look like that.
Well, and then also, you know, camera angle and like, where's your camera pointing? I can take a picture of my laundry room with that cute little plant and candle and 2 neatly folded towels on the counter. And behind me or next to me off camera, there's like 77 loads of laundry to do all over the floor and it's 2 feet deep. But you can't see my floor in the picture because I don't put my camera there, you know?
Yeah. You know, that's why I appreciated, there used to be this guy who would post, I think it was actually Facebook. He would post pictures of his kid crying and then title the picture, Why My Kid's Crying. Yeah. And it was just so funny to me because it was literally like the opposite of what everyone else was doing. They were posting how perfect and how great.
Their kids never cried.
Yeah, and his were just so funny. He's just like, his kid's just like having a meltdown in the high chair, and he's like, he's crying because I won't let him have Oreos for breakfast. Yeah. Another time, like, he's crying because I won't let him stick his finger in the light socket. Like, he's crying. And it was just so funny because I'm like, that's what life is, you know? Yeah, exactly. Our perfect moments are so few and far between. Right. You know?
Yeah, and those ones that we make perfect by filtering and cropping and things.
I don't use the filters.
I don't either.
You know why?
Why?
Because I don't want someone to like only see me online for years and then see me in real life and be horrified.
Yeah, be scared.
You know, I want to be aging in real time. And so when they see me 10 years later, they're not so shocked. Mm-hmm. Because those filters make you look like you haven't aged since high school.
Yeah. And I don't know anybody who hasn't. Unless you're still in high school.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, one time we were driving away from a wedding. We had just moved to New Hampshire. So there's these people I hadn't seen them in 15 years. A lot of them. They were from out west and whatnot, and I had lived all over already.
Mm-hmm.
And we were driving away from the wedding, and I told my husband, I said, wow, it was so surprising to see all those people from way back that we haven't seen. I said, they all look so old and chubby. And then we're like driving, and like probably 2 full minutes goes by, and we're just absolutely quiet. And then I looked at him and I'm like, we are too, aren't we? And he just like started laughing. He's like, yeah, we are. So it's funny how you don't necessarily like see it in yourself.
No.
All the time.
You don't.
And then you see other people and you're just like, oh my goodness, I wonder what they think when they saw me. They're probably like, ooh,
yeah,
girlfriend let herself go. I'd be like, no, I just don't care anymore, you know?
Yeah.
No, it's not true. I do care. I joke, but.
Yeah. I think we all do.
Not enough to use a filter.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what I really look like.
Mm-hmm.
Although the lighting in here is really weird. I'm glad we're just on audio. Let me say that.
Yeah. I was thinking you look good.
Thanks. I don't feel like you've changed a whole lot since I've known you, but maybe I've just seen you enough over the years that it's just not shocking.
Yeah.
But anyway, I feel like we've covered discipleship and mentorship and the differences between the two and whatever pretty well. And I hope some people are encouraged to kind of look around and maybe let people into their lives and be vulnerable and authentic with them. And I think that you'll be surprised at the blessings that come your way when you do.
Absolutely. And you know what? Reach out to us. We would love to hear your stories about discipleship or mentoring. We would love to connect with you. If you have questions about how to do this, ask us. You can email us. You can reach us at whosegirlareyou@gmail.com. WHOSE. whosegirlareyou@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. We've had feedback. Someone, I will let remain unnamed, messaged me this week and said she had filled out a survey, and Whose Girl Are You was one of her favorite podcasts. So that was super cool to hear.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm glad one person thinks that we're their favorites. That's enough for me. I'll float on that one for today.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been so fun to talk to you.
Someone also said, I'm going to give you some more. Someone also said, let me think, how did they say it? Someone also said, you had mentioned in one of our podcasts, like, even if nobody is listening to this and we're just doing this just for you and me, it's worth it. And she said, I'm over here raising my hand and waving. I'm listening. I love it.
Oh, that's funny. You know what I would like people to write in? I would like them to write in questions or topics that they want us to talk about.
Yes, totally.
You know, or if they want to be interviewed because they have something like niche to share that like they think people need to hear about, I would love to know. I have a few people coming up that I'm excited about that I'll be interviewing. I'm not going to release who that is right now, but kind of excited about it. And Lois, you have?
Yes, I have some too.
I do want to do more interviews because I love hearing other people's stories and, you know, things that they've been through and things that we can learn from them. And that plays right into this whole mentoringship thing because as I hear other people's stuff, I have revelation a lot of times like, oh, wow, I didn't see that in myself, or, oh, that's something really easy that I could implement, or, so yeah, I'd love to hear from people about that.
Sounds good.
All right. I'll talk to you next week. Okay?
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.